Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Well, yesterday was pretty much absolutely rubbish, really, wasn't it? All the hope and expectation from midweek that had been built up kind of dissipated pretty quickly. I was talking to some fans on the way to the game and they all seemed in good spirits. Weather was rubbish, but there was still, kind of a bright optimism that maybe with this slightly different team that had been picked on Wednesday night, if he could do something similar, Pochettino, then Spurs could kick on. Weirdly, despite people thinking he would have changed the team up, he actually did exactly what most fans wanted. Two changes only. The fullbacks, we'll come to them later, but in bulk, the team was the same team pretty much that overcame Red Star Belgrade comprehensively away. But it just didn't click in the same way. There were some nice moments. I think kind of some of the midfield play was quite good. The link-up, especially Lo Celso, the link-up he had with various players. And I thought Dele Alli's link-ups with Son were pretty good as well. Ndombele looked really bright early on, and then unfortunately picked up a groin injury, which was really strange. I mean, afterwards, Pochettino explained about that. He even said it was a strange situation. He said he just looked uncomfortable out there. However, when they asked him about it during the first half, he didn't want to come off. He said there was nothing wrong. Got to half time, and the doctor said he can't continue. I think some people have come across because I asked about that after the game and kind of got those details. And when I put those quotes out, I think some people took that as Poch having a go at Ndombele, and that was a reason for Spurs not doing so well. I never got that impression actually during the press conference. I think he was just saying it was a bit of a weird one in that the player kind of said he was okay to continue, but he could just see out there he wasn't kind of the Ndombele that we've seen in some games recently. And I think that was a big blow. The guy's been superb, really, and also is a massive kind of driving force in that Tottenham midfield when they're struggling for others to do so. So I think losing him was a blow. However, we can't beat around the bush. This was Sheffield United having a terrific season, playing really good, strong, battling, organised football, and they are fifth in the table right now. But Tottenham Hotspur should be turning over promoted teams, especially at home. They should. There's no excuse whatsoever. It's in the final third, especially in the Premier League. Spurs just look so. There's like a lack of composure, a lack of confidence. Harry Kane, I mean, wow. He didn't get a lot of service. I'm going to give him that. He didn't see much to the ball, but I also think there's got to be some blame laid at his door in terms of his movement wasn't great. You could see there was a few occasions that, say, Lo Celso was picking up the ball or Ali, and Kane was just kind of buried behind two or three Sheffield United players. He wasn't there to be passed to. He wasn't making the runs that he does. If anything, it was Son who was the one that was probably available more. That could be that Kane was being overmarked, which was leaving space for Son, but I just not quite there with Kane. And what worries me the most is he's this captain. He's the captain of this Tottenham Hotspur side, and he's not inspiring in any way, shape or form. If anything, Tottenham are kind of trying to play an attack around him. Just not the. He's a world-class striker. He really is. But whether it's the fact that the team isn't set up to provide him with everything he needs, the service, or whether Kane himself is just kind of out of form, but it's not clicking. Absolutely not clicking at all. And Spurs' goal when it came, incredibly fortunate. They'd only just had their first shot on target, I think, a few minutes beforehand with Dele Alli playing Son through and the keeper Henderson saving his shot. But the goal itself was just was a bit of a miscontrol in the box by a Sheffield United player, went to Son, and even then his shot was deflected through the legs of the keeper. Spurs should have gone on from there, should have swept on and absolutely made the most of it. They didn't. Sheffield United went up the other end and really should have equalised. My God, I hate VAR with such a passion. I don't want to get into a long rant about VAR because I've done it before. Everyone who's watched these or read my stuff knows that I think it's an absolute mess of a thing that's been brought into a game of football that everyone loved. Why tinker? Why change? Why interrupt? That incident yesterday, Lundström's big toe being offside is ridiculous. Whatever happened to giving the benefit of the doubt to the attacker, ensuring games were full of attacking play and goals? We've just regressed massively to this crap VAR thing where, people's armpit hair can be offside. We saw it with Son at Leicester as well. It's just ridiculous. And then the whole point of it is it's supposed to be a clear and obvious error that would be overturning the referee's decision, and the referee and the linesman had given it. An offside flag hadn't been raised. VAR back at, in the room where they were analysing it all took almost 4 minutes to decide that was offside. That's not clear and obvious. I can't say that enough times. It's not. If you're taking 4 minutes to look at a million angles of something, it's not clear and obvious error. Just, despite the fact that, and Spurs fans were saying the same, just let it be a goal. You're absolutely messing with the game and completely destroying the whole flow of football and how it's meant to be played. Absolutely woeful stuff. Use it for goal line decisions. If you're going to have to use it for handball, I kind of get that as well, especially when it's really obvious. But when you're getting an offside that is just a millimetre and it's just, I can't stand it. Sorry, I just get so annoyed with it. I know there's plenty of other things to get annoyed in life, but VAR really absolutely gets my goat. So they didn't score that. That, again, should have been another motivating factor for Tottenham to sweep forward. But no, they just got this really bad thing at the moment of even when they go ahead, just sitting back and trying to defend. Tottenham Hotspur cannot sit back and defend. They just can't do it. It's just not in their makeup, especially this current setup. And I think anyone in that stadium could have told you that an equalising goal was going to come. And when it did, it was kind of similar-ish to the first goal that should have stood for them in terms of just balls going out wide, fullbacks not doing their job, and then people in the middle losing their man. And this one was more of it was a cross, wasn't it? It was a deflected cross or a miscued cross into the box, which I think Dyer ended up giving it as an own goal, which it's just a mess. And that's what Tottenham Hotspur are at the back at the moment, especially. They're not that great at the front either. Let's get on to them. Let's get on to the fullbacks. Why wait around? Serge Aurier, that man is probably one of the most frustrating footballers I've ever seen play for Tottenham Hotspur. There's talent in there. He's got the ability to be a great right back, a really good right back. However, it's just, I don't know whether it's a disengagement of his brain when he plays football or just a complete and utter lack of consistency. But he's incredibly frustrating. And I don't dislike the guy. I was, I think, the first guy to sit down and do a proper one-on-one interview with him after he came to England. Sat down for a good 20-25 minutes with him. Really interesting character. Obviously, lots of controversy in his past and things that aren't particularly great. But in terms of, the background and the life he's led and how he's got to where he is, he's an interesting character. So certainly not a guy that I'd look to dig out because I don't like him or anything like that. But my God, as a footballer, he's so frustrating. There was a moment in the second half that if I was the manager, I would have just taken him off that pitch and got him out of the team. Because quite frankly, he did it and he's done it before. He went up the pitch, went on an attack, lost the ball, and slowly walked back down the pitch to the Tottenham Hotspur penalty area. Sheffield United had attacked. They'd got towards the box, and he was just watching, slowly walking back, a very light jog possibly, watching the likes of Sissoko, Lo Celso, all having to go back and cover the right-back slot where he just, quite frankly, couldn't be asked to get back to play any part in defending. And he just stood there. He actually got to the edge of the area and just kind of stood and watched things happening. Eventually Spurs got the ball and cleared it. And then Juan Foyth was coming on and I just assumed he must be injured. He was kind of just walking around watching the game. He must have picked up some kind of muscle injury that he doesn't want to tear the muscle or something like that. But no, Foyth then came on for Dele Alli, which I thought was a bizarre substitution in itself, to create a back five, just to make sure Spurs were even more defensively set up, which tactically that just blew my mind, and not in a good way. But just for Aurier to then stay on, which proved he just couldn't be bothered. And he's done it before, I said before in the Bayern Munich game when he was up front as a number 10. Just because he couldn't be bothered to get back, and you had Lamela shouting at him to get the hell back. I have no idea how that guy is still playing at right back for Tottenham Hotspur. I just don't get it. The options must be pretty horrific if he is the first choice right back, because for me, Juan Foyth, against Red Star. I thought he played well. I thought he did enough to just justify that he shouldn't have been one of the changes. I think if you're going to pick someone, I think he should be the right back going forward. Kyle Walker-Peters, God knows what that guy has done, whether he has, something horrific has happened behind the scenes, and I don't think it has, because we asked Pochettino a couple of months, was it? It was when Sissoko played, was it against Brighton at right back? And I think it was Brighton. Was it Brighton? When he played at right back, and we asked Pochettino why are you playing a midfielder at right back? And he admitted, I haven't been convinced by the people that have played there. And bearing in mind at that point, and this was Aurier was suspended. It was after the Southampton game, so he was only talking about non-Aurier right backs. That's Kyle Walker-Peters. So he was essentially saying, without naming him, Kyle Walker-Peters has not convinced him. I struggle to understand how Kyle Walker-Peters is any worse than Serge Aurier. I know some people have split opinions on Kyle Walker-Peters, but if you look at the stats, Kyle Walker-Peters has the same number of assists, 5, as Serge Aurier has, and Kyle Walker-Peters has played a third of the games. Some of those probably brief substitute appearances as well. Spurs are struggling to create chances. Their fullbacks that are normally kind of act as wingers are not creating chances for strikers. Harry Kane is getting 0 service crosses into the box for him. Kyle Walker-Peters is a right back that can set up goals, that can create chances. Play him. Just play him. I don't get the Aurier thing. I just don't. There was a moment, it was some of the journalists in a row in the press box, and we just groans every time Aurier got into their half because he gave the ball away or hit a crap cross into someone's body or foot, or he just... The fact also that he wanted to leave the club, stated repeatedly that he wanted to leave the club. What is he doing in the team? Honestly, it's decisions like that where I've got Poch's back. I do. There's a lot of things, and we'll come to it later, where I feel he's been hard done by. But decisions like that is where you just cannot stand up for him. I don't understand the logic behind it. I would play probably 2-3 other players. I'd play Walker-Peters. I'd play Foyth. I'd play probably Sissoko. Probably even Dyer ahead of Serge Aurier at right back. I just think the guy is an absolute liability. If you're not going to track back and you're not going to chase back, just get off the pitch, honestly. What's the point? You're just not doing it for the team. You're just not in it for the team whatsoever in those scenarios. I get that he's a popular guy in the dressing room. He's a funny character. I know that from my interview with him. But it's just why? Just why? Massively why? Who else we got there? Ben Davies. Don't want to let him off the hook. Ben Davies, I thought, was pretty ordinary. Didn't offer much going forward. His quality on the ball was poor, especially late in the game when Spurs, as they often do, woke up in about the last 10 minutes or so. They needed a few occasions where the ball was crossfield, like it was pumped crossfield to him. All he had to do was take a good touch, control it, or cross it first time into the box, and he messed it up. I do wonder whether Ryan Sessegnon, they're going to have to fast track him into a left back role, because the options otherwise are pretty dire, and I don't mean Eric. They're just... Oh, it was so disappointing. It was so disappointing when you get you get the hope from Wednesday when they looked good, they created chances, could have scored more goals, and then Sheffield United essentially came and did a number on them. They were the better team. Pochettino said it was an even game. I think Spurs dominated periods of possession. What does that mean? It means absolutely nothing if you're not going to do anything with the ball. Positives. Let's look for some positives. Gazzaniga, thought he did well again. I think he's settling into the role quite well now. He's starting to get, I think, the game sharpness he needed. Really good goal, really good save early on, like a couple of minutes in from the free kick. I think it was a deflected shot, wasn't it? After Dyer picked up that early yellow card. Lo Celso again, very bright. I think he definitely is the way forward for Tottenham. I think they build that team around him and Ndombele in the middle, because he's unburdened, by the fear and lack of confidence that the other players have got in that midfield. He gets the ball moving. He tries stuff. Despite the fact that he plays some kind of risky through balls, so many of them, he actually loses the ball not too many times. He holds possession pretty well. So yeah, let's get him involved. Let's get Sessegnon involved. Ndombele, hopefully his groin injury isn't too serious. I know some people call for Lucas Moura. I'm divided on Lucas Moura. Anyone again that's read or watched my stuff knows my opinions on him. I think he's got a great amount of skill. Very direct, like yesterday right at the end he tried a shot that was tipped over. I just don't think he's the top class player that I think a lot of people are saying. A lot of people are saying give him more time, he needs time here, he needs to start. I haven't seen him take those opportunities. We all know what he did in Amsterdam. It was an amazing performance that, quite frankly, was historic for Tottenham. I just don't feel, in terms of creativity, he offers enough to other players, other teammates. He always looks to run, head down, get to where he can try and get a shot away, and that's what he does. That will bring goals, and I do think he should be playing a part, but I think the calls for him to be starting matches, I haven't seen what he's done to deserve that, quite frankly, other than that magical night in Amsterdam, which, as we know, time moves on, and we're a long way away from that right now. Which really brings us to Pochettino. The calls for him to go are starting to increase. There's more and more people now are doubting. What I would say, the form has been crap. 2019 has been rubbish for Premier League form. Away form has been terrible since January. Although I would say I actually feel that in terms of the way they're actually playing worse at home, because whether it's a thing with the crowd that are kind of, they can sense the frustration and fear of the crowd. I don't know whether that translates or not, but I actually feel the way they play at home is more stilted, fragmented, and just not good enough in front of goal. They obviously, Pochettino's changes do play a part. I think it's 94 games now in a row where he's changed the team. 94 games since they had two consecutive lineups that were the same for matches. I know it's worked for him in the past. It's one of those where in previous seasons the team has changed, it's done fine. However, there's got to be a point where you're losing momentum. Players are wondering, am I in next week? Am I out next week? It's not a good way for... It's not going to be a popular thing for players at all. What I would say, if we're going to look the other way of things, Spurs are not getting hammered in matches. They're not getting tonked. This isn't a team that isn't playing for the manager, that has lost complete confidence. I don't see that. Otherwise, we'd be seeing the Bayern Munich type results each week. We saw City go to Liverpool this afternoon, and they could have lost by more than the 3-1 they lost to. Spurs went there and obviously at one point could have been 2-0 up, ended up losing 2-1. The games are tighter. I think it's just more of a case of a lack of confidence in what they're doing going forward. And also the table is incredibly tight. Don't get me wrong, the distance to fourth is worrying. It's 11 points now between Spurs and Manchester City, who are fourth. That's a hell of a long way to go. But what I would say in terms of the bulk of the table, it's incredibly tight. Spurs are 14th. They, technically, if other results went their way, could win a game and go fifth. That's how stupidly tight the rest of the table is. But obviously that's all a little bit of a facade because of the top four are obviously pulling away so much. And it depends how you look at it. With Pochettino, where I'm at is I still feel he's been royally stuffed in terms of the rebuild that never happened. I don't know how you manage a team effectively when at least 5 of the players were meant to leave and didn't, and you still have those voices, those disappointed players in the dressing room naturally are not going to be fully committed. It's not saying that they want to be uncommitted to the cause. It's just that naturally their head is elsewhere and they're thinking about their next move. And that's just a crap thing to have to manage. I do think he's had misfortune in terms of Lo Celso and Sessegnon, 2 of his summer signings being pretty much unavailable until now. You do wonder, looking at how good Lo Celso is, what he could be right now had he been playing, at the start of the season. Obviously, again, let down with Lo Celso coming in so late, whether they brought him in a little bit earlier, whether he'd had just that tiny bit of pre-season. Not too much. You can't criticise too much because of the Copa America. He had come back late anyway. However, he just would have been a few weeks ahead of where he is now, or would have been, apart from the injury. It's just not good, though. It's not good. Spurs haven't won a game since September. I still believe that you'd struggle. I think that my problem with it is whether there's all these people. If you're saying Poch out, I get that, but then I want to know who comes in. I fear that if you're thinking about bringing someone in for the sake of the change, you're thinking about the short term. Obviously, any new manager is likely to give a little bit of a short-term boost of confidence to players because it's just a change. It's something new. It's something different. I get that. However, what I then worry about is what happens, I don't know, after, say, a month or 2 months' time. I've seen Jose Mourinho's been linked. We know that Jose Mourinho, he needs money. Whatever you're trying to tell me about how he was at Porto, or I think Inter Milan, he maybe didn't spend as much money. At every other club, he's needed money. He was moaning last season because Man United had only spent, I think it was 75, 80 million. Spurs spent nothing. The previous season, I think he spent something like almost 200 million at Man United. He's not going to get that at Tottenham. Massimiliano Allegri, Juventus guy, who's obviously he's having a sabbatical this year. In last season at Juventus, I think it was 270 or 280 million pounds he spent on that team. These are guys that need money. Pochettino has been crying out for that money to spend, or at least the rebuild to happen. If you're going to plonk another manager into the same scenario, how does it improve once you've got over the little 1 month bump of confidence? The likes of Eriksen, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Rose, Aurier, they're still likely to go in the summer, if not January. That doesn't change. I don't care who comes in. I still believe those guys financially are looking to move on, especially the 3 out of contract. I think Vertonghen, maybe I'm being harsh on Vertonghen. I think Vertonghen maybe would want to stay, but wants a longer contract than what's on offer. But is he the same player he was? I do worry that having on the evidence of this season, whether he's starting to decline. So you are dealing with whoever comes in is going to have, in the summer, a massive rebuild on their hands and potentially without the money to do so. If Pochettino wants to stay, and that's a big if as well, he may feel that he's taken his team as far as he can and he knows what this club is up to. I think it's incredibly harsh, and I'll repeat this, despite what you're seeing being served up at the moment, I still feel if anyone deserves the chance to actually do that rebuild, it's Pochettino. Unfortunately, the problem is getting there. And it needs to be a turnaround. And I still believe January, stuff needs to happen. If you can get rid of any of those players you don't want in January, make sure you do it. If you have to take a cut price, if you have to take, bloody hell, take 2-3 million for a player that you're going to lose for free in the summer, I think it's time to just do it. Clear out the squad and actually plan ahead. Bring in players in January. I know it's tougher. I know they're more expensive. But my God, if you can't plan for a future you know is going to happen 6 months beforehand, then you're in the wrong game. That's not management in terms of the club management, the structure. Pochettino said yesterday, a really telling line at the end, he said, we know what we want to do with this club, but whether we get the time to see it through is another thing. And I think he knows that if the team continue as they are and they aren't picking up wins, then eventually a decision is going to have to be made. Like I say, my fear is what happens after that. You get a month. We've seen it in the past. We know there's motivating managers. We know the bump that sometimes clubs get, and they don't always get that. Harry Redknapp came in. It's quite interesting when you look back. I think maybe we romanticise that period, and we look at the period after Redknapp came in with Juando Ramos with Spurs. I think they bottom or second from bottom with only 2 points or something. And I think I kind of remember looking back and thinking, Redknapp had a big old surge. He boosted things. When you actually look back, he didn't. It didn't actually happen. That season was pretty rubbish. I mean, he managed to get them up the table, and fair play to him. However, it was a grind, and there were lots of bad results among those as well. It was the next season where he started to kick them on, and that was obviously because they had some very good players as well, and coming in as well. I don't know if that would be the case for any new manager coming in at Tottenham right now. Pochettino and Levy are very close. They've always had that close relationship, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the coming weeks. Like I say, I do believe if he has Lo Celso getting fitter, Sessegnon comes in, and he can start to do things his own way, maybe you'll see a turnaround in results. The international break, my God, I hope there's no injuries. Luck-wise, if you lose Lo Celso, you lose Sessegnon just as he's come back. Non-Dembele injury turns out to be a bad one. God, you worry about the way the team's going. I think maybe then you just have to start to look to youth. Something Pochettino shied away from. I think there's question marks over some of the youngsters, whether they're ready yet to step up anyway. Troy Parrott, I've said enough times I'd love to see him on the bench, at least get a few minutes. I think just to lift people, that no-fear element of a young player. I think Japhet Tanganga deserves to at least be involved. I think he's done very well whenever he's played. But you look at the next 4 fixtures. You've got West Ham away. My God, West Ham are struggling, but Tottenham go there and West Ham turn up as they often do. I know it's called their cup final and all that. And if they turn up and do what they often do, which is play out of their skin against Tottenham, and Tottenham lose, oh my God, the noise is going to be unbearable. And it's going to be a case where Spurs fans are going to be so embarrassed by what's happening at the club that it's going to make things really difficult and almost maybe untenable for Pochettino. After that, you've got Olympiacos at home, Bournemouth at home, and then it's Man United away. If Spurs can turn it around during those 4-game period, then things start to look brighter. Like I say, that table is so tight they get up there, and obviously you hope that other teams above start dropping points. If they don't, it's only going to get noisier and louder, the calls for Pochettino. And like I said, I do worry where they go from there. If you're not going to get an Allegri or Mourinho because of the money element, and then you start looking at, and obviously Allegri is also a risk as well. He has not managed in the Premier League. We've seen certain men like even Emery, at Arsenal, he's come in and had done good things in France and in Spain as well, and he's come to England and he's struggled enormously. Then you're dipping down to maybe Eddie Howe's of this world, or some of the Nagelsmann, untested managers elsewhere across Europe. It's just a massive gamble. It's a tough time. I can understand why people are getting frustrated with Pochettino. I can also understand why he should get backing, because I think he's been dealt some pretty crap cards for a guy that's been incredibly patient with Spurs building their new stadium and essentially operating on a shoestring himself to try and get the club up the... Well, you only have to look at it. 4 consecutive Champions League finishes, and obviously a Champions League final, which has never happened in the history of the club. I think he's warned everyone about this season. He warned everyone it was going to be a really tough season if the club continued to operate in the same way they have in recent years. The club have. It's not like he didn't warn people. He has told people this was going to happen. If money wasn't going to be spent, the rebuild wasn't going to happen, people were going to be shipped out the door, popular names were going to be lost, and young players were going to be brought in and the team built up again. This was going to happen. And now it's happening and everyone's getting angry with Pochettino. As I said, don't get me wrong, he's made mistakes. He has. Some of his decisions on who he picks, I think there's a loyalty issue which is baffling when the players aren't doing it for him. I think he's... the tinkering is incredibly annoying. Substitutions can be annoying. Like I said, Foyth for Ali. When Ali, for me, was actually playing some decent through balls and looked like he knew what he was doing. Aurier should have been shipped off that pitch. My God, that guy should not be playing football for Tottenham Hotspur. He just shouldn't. He's had what are we up to now? 2.5 seasons, and he still hasn't convinced me in any way, shape or form that he should be Tottenham Hotspur's right back. Somewhere among all that mess of waffle that I just came out with is kind of my belief. I still think Pochettino deserves the chance. I think it will get to a point, if it continues as it is, though, where a decision will have to be made. I agree with that, because quite frankly, you just can't keep going down a road where it's not going to improve. But I think Pochettino, over these next 2 weeks, is going to have hardly any players. They're all away pretty much on international duties, only a handful, if that. He needs to spend his 2 weeks working out if he's going to continue, if he wants to continue, and if the club are going to back him. He needs to know what his plan is to get to January. He needs to very clearly spell it out exactly which players are not going to be a part of it. With Alderweireld, Vertonghen and Eriksen aren't even playing at the moment. If that's going to be the case, then remove them from the squad. I think probably the one I'd say that's maybe harsh on is Alderweireld. I don't feel he's actually been that bad or shown that he's not interested in things. or his form hasn't dipped maybe as much as the rest. So he needs to formulate an exact plan of who he's going to play. He needs to stick to it. I know there's a lot of games coming up. I know there's midweek matches, but I think he needs to get a team that is used to playing with each other, not broken up, gets some momentum and gets going. Beat West Ham away, you build something. Beat Olympiacos at home, you build something, you qualify for the Champions League knockout stages. Beat Bournemouth at home, it's spitballing and snowballing, and then you go to Man United, and obviously we know that that's going to be a tough game. Spurs do often struggle at Old Trafford, apart from the Lucas Moura game, funnily enough. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I could go on and on about this all day, but I don't want you sitting here or listening to this forever, me going back and forth on my opinions. But that's just Tottenham Hotspur right now. I desperately want Pochettino to succeed. I think he's earned the right to. I just hope his team are fully behind him to help him do that, because at times, looking at them, I don't really believe they are. Certainly some players. And I think the club needs to have a plan for January to back him as well. Because if they're not, then everything he said is just going to come to fruition, and he's going to end up losing his job despite warning them exactly what was going to happen. It's not a great situation. I'm sorry, these videos, there's me up and down, isn't it? I was really hopeful on Friday after the midweek match, and then everything just felt like it flipped back to how it was yesterday, which is incredibly disappointing. But let's see what the next few weeks brings. Whether I'd be stunned if there was a change soon. Like I said, because of that table being so tight, and because of the credit Pochettino has in the bank. However, he knows the pressure's on, and he's going to have to start delivering, and that may mean he's got to be brutal. He should have been brutal a long time ago, to be honest. Let's see what happens. Thanks if you stuck all the way through that. Me flip-flopping backwards and forward and having a bit of a rant about various things. And let's see what the next few weeks brings. I'll catch you later.